Due to restructuring, your position is being eliminated, Julia announced, not even bothering to lift her eyes from the tablet. 19 years. 19 years with Northmere Dynamics, and that was the send-off. A chilly line read from a screen in a sterile conference room, security waiting quietly in the hallway. My name is Jack Greer. I'm 59. Or I was, until 5 minutes ago, the senior financial controller of a company that once built the kind of industrial machines people could be proud of. Before the suits came. Before the venture capital firms rolled in like a storm, stripping out values in favor of valuations. I'd spent almost 2 decades keeping those numbers honest. Every cent reconciled, every vendor vetted. Now I was being ushered out like a temp who overstayed his welcome. We'll need your key card and parking pass, Damon said, pushing a cardboard box across the table like it contained the last pieces of me. Security will escort you to gather your personal items. I nodded. No scene, no protest. I just smoothed my tie and folded the worn leather portfolio my wife gave me 15 years ago. That portfolio had been to boardrooms and funerals. It had outlasted cancer. It had outlasted her. It held more than papers. It held my purpose when grief tried to pull me under. I held on to it as I stood. Is there anything you'd like to say, Jack? Julia asked, her tone feigning courtesy, but her fingers never stopped tapping on the glass table. She was fishing. For tears, for anger, for something to ease the weight of her decision. I gave her nothing. No. Thank you for the opportunity. Her brow twitched, just slightly. That wasn't what she wanted to hear. HR will contact you about your retirement package, Damon added, stressing the word like it was a kindness. We both knew I was 5 years shy of the full pension. He knew it. I knew it. Julia probably approved the timeline to make sure of it. Security, Kyle, poor kid, trailed me to my office, his face tight with awkward guilt. I'm sorry about this, Mr. Greer, he whispered as I wrapped my late wife's photo in tissue paper. Not your fault, Kyle. I placed my keycard gently on the desk, but the portfolio? That came with me. Tucked inside wasn't just paperwork. It was a 3-year trail, receipts, memos, flagged transactions. A flash drive loaded with vendor payments that didn't add up. Wire transfers that bypassed verification. Audit scheduled, then mysteriously cancelled. Julia and Damon thought they were shedding dead weight, getting rid of the relic who asked too many questions. They didn't realize they just cut loose the one person who knew where every buried bone lay. I walked through the lobby and felt the air shift around me. Coworkers glanced at me, then looked away. 19 years reduced to lowered eyes and the sound of shoes on polished tile. No one said goodbye. No one dared. Only when I reached my car did I let a small, tight smile rise. They thought I was walking out empty-handed. They were wrong. I hadn't always been the guy with contingency plans and backup files. The first 15 years at Northmere were solid. I joined when it was still run by Harold Northmere himself. He came in every morning and walked the factory floor before coffee, before meetings. Numbers don't lie, Jack, he used to say. People do. Your job is to make sure the numbers still tell the truth. I took that seriously. Still do. But after Harold retired and his son sold us off to investors, the values shifted. Slowly at first, just enough to feel it in your gut, not see it on paper. Cheaper parts. Deferred maintenance. Efficiency. Then came the rebranding. Julia walked in like a thunderstorm in heels, all slide decks and performance metrics. Damon followed half a year later, selling, culture transformation, and buzzwords about stakeholder synergy. I gave them both a fair shot. Then came that first quarterly review. These vendor invoices don't align with received goods, I'd pointed out. We're mid-supplier transition, Julia said, smiling with too many teeth. It'll balance out. It didn't. And my emails? Ignored. Then came the 5-figure consulting retainers for shell companies. Receipts with duplicate charges that miraculously cleared. Weekend executive retreats disguised as strategy intensives. That's when I started taking notes. Jack Greer, I need to talk to you about some financial irregularities at Northmere Dynamics. Yes, it's extensive. Can we meet today? The voice on the other end was James Parker, my old college roommate, now a federal prosecutor specializing in white-collar crime. Hearing from him after so many years was no coincidence. The first move had been made. 3 days after meeting James, a certified letter arrived from Northmere's legal department. Inside was the severance agreement, neatly typed, full of legalese, and as cold as the room where they let me go. Signing it meant agreeing to a broad confidentiality clause that would prevent me from ever speaking about company operations, past, present, or future. Not just hush money. Muzzle money. And for what? 3 months' salary. That was their valuation of 19 years of service. I called Ellie, a sharp legal mind I trusted. They're scared, she said after reviewing the documents. These aren't standard NDA terms. This reads more like damage control. They're trying to bury something. What happens if I don't sign? They'll try to contest your unemployment benefits and withhold your accrued PTO. Legally shaky, but they're betting you won't have the patience, or the pockets, to fight. I thanked her, told her I'd sleep on it. What I didn't mention was that my mind was already made up. I wasn't signing anything. Later that afternoon, the doorbell rang. Julia stood on my porch with a forced smile stretched across her face, pretending we were old colleagues catching up over coffee, not adversaries standing on opposite sides of a fire. Jack, she cooed. May I come in? I stepped aside, saying nothing. She made her way to the living room and placed a clean copy of the severance agreement on my coffee table like it was a peace offering. There was a misunderstanding. We're willing to extend your severance by another 2 months if you sign today. What's the rush? I asked, voice calm. The board's finalizing next quarter's budget. We need all outstanding matters resolved. She tried to sound businesslike, but there was an edge under her words. Like those unpaid vendor invoices? I said, letting the words land deliberately. The Westbrook entries that showed up with no matching inventory. Her smile wavered. Clerical errors. Already addressed. And the payments to Everight Partners? I asked. The shell company registered at your brother-in-law's address? The mask slipped completely then. Her expression hardened. Be careful, Jack. Tossing around accusations like that, defamation's no small matter. Neither is fraud, I replied. Did you remove any company records when you left? That would constitute theft. I kept copies of my work product, as allowed by the employee handbook, I said. She stood abruptly. You have until tomorrow. After that, your retirement planning may get complicated. The door closed behind her with a quiet finality. Not 5 minutes later, a text pinged my phone from a number I didn't recognize. Back off if you know what's good for you. We know about the flash drive. That night, a dark car parked across the street from my house. It idled for nearly an hour before pulling away. The next morning, it was back. Then my bank called. Someone had tried to access my accounts using my social security number. Bad passwords, wrong answers. But they were trying. That afternoon, my email exploded. Hundreds of sign-ups and payment requests for services I'd never heard of. It was obvious. They were letting me know they could get to me. I called James. They're pushing back, I told him. Hard. Expect it, he said evenly, but I could hear the tension behind his calm. It means they're worried. And if they're worried, it means you've got something real. Forward me everything, the letter, the texts, the fake logins, the surveillance. What about my files? Is it enough? His pause said more than any answer. It's compelling, Jack. But Northmere has armies of attorneys who'll call this a coincidence. Miscommunications. Clerical slip-ups. They'll deny until they bleed. So what now? Now, James said, we dig deeper. But you need to prepare. This won't be easy. I looked at the screen in my hands. Julia's face, smiling in the staff newsletter from 2 years ago. All charm, all spin. But this wasn't about personality anymore. It was about patterns, and mine told the truth. Accounting errors? We need more. Someone on the inside. I hung up the phone, the words echoing louder in my mind than they had through the speaker. For the first time since this all began, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel: fear. They were watching me, tracking me, trying to isolate me. And the truth was, I didn't have enough, yet. A week after Julia's visit, I got a call from my former assistant, Teresa. Her voice was tight, clipped, and nervous. Can we meet? Not in public. Not at your house. We agreed on my brother's off-grid cabin about an hour outside St. Louis. He was wintering in Florida, so the place was empty and quiet. When she arrived, Teresa looked like she hadn't slept in days. She parked facing the road, her eyes flicking to the rearview mirror even as she stepped out. They're doing a full audit, she said the moment we got inside. Only it's not real. It's cleanup. They're altering entries, backdating approvals, creating documentation that never existed. How do you know? I asked, though her tone told me everything. They brought in consultants. From Damon's old firm. But here's the thing, they gave me your old login credentials by mistake. I still have access to system logs. I've been screenshotting everything. Before and after. She pulled a small flash drive from her coat and held it out. It's all here. I stared at the device. You're risking your job. She gave a humorless laugh. They've already decided I'm gone. Found out when they copied me on an internal memo by accident. Restructuring. I'm on the list. What Teresa showed me confirmed every gut instinct I'd tried to push aside. This wasn't just corporate greed or creative accounting, it was fraud at a level I hadn't imagined. Northmere had been systematically inflating invoices, doctoring part certifications, and overcharging government contracts for equipment that didn't meet safety specs. Worse, they were logging fake inventory to inflate company valuation for a pending sale. There's more, she said, pulling up an email thread. They're prepping to sell the manufacturing division. Private equity firms lined up. Employees won't know until it's finalized. What about the pension fund? I asked. Her face answered for her. They've been borrowing from it for over a year. Once the deal closes, there won't be enough left to pay out obligations. Hundreds of people. Retirement gone. Who else knows? Just the execs. And now you. She hesitated. And maybe one other. Drew from Quality Control. He started asking questions last month. Then he disappeared, about a week before you were let go. Fired? Here's the weird part. No termination paperwork. File shows he resigned, but his badge was never returned. His desk? Cleared out overnight. A chill ran down my spine. Have you heard from him? She shook her head. Goes straight to voicemail. On the drive back to the city, the weight of what I'd just learned pressed on me like a block of concrete. This was bigger than I'd thought. The car that had been parked outside my home all week was gone now, but that somehow made me more nervous. I dialed Drew's number. Voicemail. Just like Teresa said. I left a vague message about professional collaboration. Then I called James. We need to move faster, I told him. Teresa gave me something. And it changes everything. When I explained what I'd seen, he went quiet. This pension fraud, this changes the entire scope, he said. This isn't just embezzlement anymore. This is systemic, and it's affecting families. That makes it federal. I'll take it upstairs, but Jack. He paused. Be careful. If they're altering records at this level, they're scared. And scared people? They make reckless decisions. That night, sleep never came. I kept picturing Drew, Harold Northmere, and all the people who'd shown up to that factory for 25 years and trusted the company with their futures. I thought about Julia's cold smile. Damon's slick reassurances, and the sound of Teresa's voice, shaking just enough to tell me she knew the risk. At 2 a.m., my security system chimed. Motion detected, backyard. I ran to the window. Nothing. But the office window was cracked open. Slightly. Just enough to prove they'd been there. A message. They weren't just watching anymore. They wanted me to know. I didn't wait. By sunrise, I was already enacting the plan I'd kept in the back of my mind since the day Julia told me I was obsolete. A plan that started the moment I hit record. Revelations came fast and hard. The first thing I did was move all the evidence, both mine and Teresa's, to 3 separate secure locations. One full set went to Ellie with instructions not to open unless something happened to me. The second went into a locked safety deposit box at a credit union far from Julia's financial reach. The third? Encrypted and sent to James, with the decryption key delivered separately via courier, no digital trails. Then I reached out to Greg in purchasing. He'd been quietly pushed out months before me, and I always suspected it wasn't because of performance. We met at a nondescript diner 2 towns over. He slid into the booth and got straight to it. "I've been waiting for this call," he said, eyes dark. Once I laid it all out, he nodded grimly. "Same story? Found discrepancies. Started asking questions. A week later, I'm walked out for breaching internal policy. Did they come after you?" "Not officially. But my place got broken into. No TV taken. Just my laptop and my old briefcase full of invoices. Filed a police report. Thought it was useless, until now." "You willing to go on record?" He nodded, no hesitation. "I've been kicking myself for staying silent." "Not anymore." By afternoon, I'd connected with 2 other former employees. An engineer from R&D and someone from compliance. Each had encountered their own version of the cover-up. Projects that mysteriously disappeared from the tracking system. Budget approvals that didn't match scope. Safety reports that were quietly erased. Piece by piece, a clearer picture began to form. That evening, James called. The federal prosecutor's office was officially involved. "They're taking this seriously now," he said, "but they need current internal documentation, especially related to the pension fraud." That was the problem. Teresa had already put herself on the line. Asking her to dig deeper could put her in danger. I was still debating whether to contact her again when my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered with caution. "Jack." The voice on the other end was strained, nearly unrecognizable. "It's Drew." I stepped outside the cafe, scanning the street instinctively. "Where are you? Are you safe?" "Just listen," he said, his voice cracking. "The Bentonville contract. Check the part certifications against the test reports. They're cutting corners. Defective parts are ending up in military vehicles." My heart dropped. "Where are you now?" "They threatened my family, Jack. Said they'd make it look like an accident. I'm leaving town. But someone has to stop this before someone dies." Then the line went dead. This had officially gone from fraud to life-threatening negligence. Military-grade vehicles with untested components? That was criminal on a national scale. I called James and relayed everything. His tone shifted immediately. "I'm escalating this to the Department of Defense. I need you in my office today." 3 hours later, I sat in a secured conference room with James and 2 DoD investigators. I laid out every detail: financial manipulation, rigged audits, pension depletion, and now, fraud tied to national security contracts. One of the agents leaned in. "We'll need full cooperation moving forward. This is going to be visible, fast. Your safety might be compromised. We can arrange federal protection." I shook my head. "I have a better idea." The next morning, I called Julia. "I've been thinking about the severance offer," I said, letting my voice tremble just enough. "I want to talk. Maybe settle things." I could almost hear her smirk through the phone. "I'm glad to hear it, Jack. Come in tomorrow, 9 a.m., and we'll finalize. Actually, I countered, could we meet at the Lakeside Hotel instead? Feels less formal. She paused, then agreed. What she didn't know was that the Lakeside was already secured by the feds. Every room wired. Entrances covered. The Magnolia Room, where we'd meet, had been prepped with surveillance long before her black SUV even pulled into the lot. She arrived with her lawyer, calm and composed, scanning the room like it belonged to her. I handed over a fresh packet of paperwork. The same offer she tried to bribe me with, now bait for a much bigger fish. Her attorney whispered questions as she flipped pages. She furrowed her brow. Some of this language is new, she said. Yes, I replied. I had it reviewed. Then she turned to the back. This clause, this looks like a resignation confirmation. That's right. I'm not resigning. But you are confessing, I said just as a federal agent entered the room behind her and calmly announced. Julia Voss, we have a few questions for you regarding your role in a series of federal contract violations. Please come with us. Her face dropped. She didn't speak. Her lawyer scrambled to close his briefcase as two agents escorted them both out of the room. I sat alone for a moment, the Magnolia Room finally quiet again. The trap had closed. And this time, no one could buy their way out. All looks in order, Julia finally said, sliding the non-disclosure agreement across the table. Just sign here and we can put this unfortunate situation behind us. Her voice was calm, rehearsed. Next to the NDA sat a severance check, 5 months' salary for 19 years of work. I stared at it for a beat. 12 pages of legal language designed to muzzle me forever. Before I sign, I said evenly, just to clarify. This agreement covers all company matters, correct? Including the pension fund discrepancies and the Bentonville military contract? Her attorney shifted in his seat. Julia's smile slipped for the briefest second, then returned like a mask. All company matters, she said smoothly. That's standard. I nodded and reached for the pen. Then I stopped. One last thing, I said. Does this agreement also relieve me of my duty to report federal crimes I've personally witnessed? The room went still. The lawyer leaned forward, the pretense of civility gone. What exactly are you implying? I'm not implying anything, I replied, standing. I'm stating it plainly. I've already provided evidence of fraud, embezzlement, and endangerment to federal authorities, including this conversation. Right on cue, the conference room door opened. James stepped inside, flanked by 2 FBI agents and a pair of Department of Defense investigators. Julia Stokes, one agent announced. We have a federal warrant to search all Northmere Dynamics facilities and seize financial records tied to government contracts. Julia turned as pale as the tablecloth. James calmly laid a folder down in front of her. This, he said, is just a fraction of what we have. The rest is being presented to a grand jury this morning. Julia reached for her phone, but an agent was already beside her, gently stopping her hand. Damon Ellis and the CEO are already in custody, another agent added, along with 3 board members. You're not being singled out. I didn't wait to watch them lead her out. My part was done. 6 months later, I stood on the mezzanine of the old Northmere manufacturing floor, now humming with renewed purpose. The machines clanked on, their rhythm unchanged, but everything else had shifted. The company had been placed in receivership during the investigation, and when the smoke cleared, a coalition of employees, with help from a state economic development fund, had purchased the division. They called it Northmere Legacy Manufacturing now. They'd asked me to return. Not to run the show, but to help design new financial systems. Real systems. Ones with embedded safeguards, transparency, accountability. A system built to last. One where no one like Julia could ever hide again. All done for the day, Mr. Greer? Kyle, the same security guard who once escorted me out, now nodded at me with genuine respect as I handed back my visitor badge. Just about, I said with a small smile. Keep an eye on things for me, Kyle. Outside, Ellie waited in her car. As I climbed in, she glanced over. How's it looking there? Solid, I said. They'll do fine without me breathing down their necks. Harold would have liked what they've built. We drove in silence for a while. Comfortable. The news had covered the scandal wall to wall, executives arrested, multiple indictments, plea deals in progress. The pension fund hadn't been fully restored, but enough was recovered that most retirees wouldn't lose their homes. Julia and Damon were still awaiting trial. The CEO had flipped early and turned over enough information to fill a vault. The headlines moved on, as they always do. Any regrets? Ellie asked as we pulled into my driveway. I thought about it. Thought about the costs, the fear, the risks. Then I shook my head. No, I said. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because it was the right thing to do. That night, I packed away everything related to Northmere. Dozens of files and flash drives, all labeled and archived. The story was preserved, documented in full, but I didn't need to keep living in it. The next morning, I started a new chapter, as a part-time ethics consultant for a national manufacturing association. My job? Helping other companies build the kind of systems that would make it hard for the next Julia or Damon to hide the truth. Not a bad final act for a 59-year-old accountant who only ever wanted one thing: for the numbers to speak honestly, and for someone to finally listen.